What's up, guys? I'm here to talk a little bit about not really big news, but there's a little droplet of information that's recently come out in the form of tweets. Unfortunately, we haven't learned anything about the upcoming game. Everybody thought that the All-Star Weekend was going to be a big announcement. It didn't happen. And now people are thinking that it might be this upcoming weekend. I really hope it is, but I'm starting to think that it might not be. In either case, whenever it's announced, it'll be great. But I really hope we hear something soon, and I hope we get some details about the upcoming game. So, for a couple of things first. First, in the last video where I talked about the Unity game engine and the whole debate around that, and whatever else I talked about, I don't remember. But Ludology TV, I hope I said your name right. If I didn't, I apologize. He did post a link to the latest Unity game engine update, the latest update. So thank you for doing that. And I would suggest that you guys check it out. Click on the link, and it's very informative. It goes through the latest build of the Unity engine, which is the latest update, and it talks about all the new and improved tools that are in that engine, and the things that are easier to do with the game engine in this current version. Right? It's made so that it's easier to use and allows you to do more in a shorter time span. It gets into more technical stuff. It's really interesting. You should check it out. But the thing that I do want to mention, I don't want to keep rehashing the game engine debate, so that's not what I'm doing. But I do kind of want to just touch on a final thing. Now, I know that there's still people out there, no matter what you tell them or how you explain this subject of game engines, that their minds are made up that the game engine is still, one, that the Unity engine is terrible, and two, that's why these games haven't been what we've wanted them to be, or they've had whatever issues they've had. If you're still on that boat, there's nothing I could really do. Your mind is made up. Sometimes people, no matter what you show them, or it's not going to make a difference. It's not so much that I'm trying to get people to see things different. I just don't want people to focus on something that really isn't the problem. And it's we have a better chance of having our voices heard if we're focused on the things that really matter. And I promise you guys that the game engine is not the problem. Okay? And for those of you who are comparing game engines and you're saying that the Unity engine sucks, I'm telling you guys, most people that develop games, whether they're indie games or whatever, they all consider the Unity engine among the top. I'm not telling you that the Unity engine is the greatest game engine, but it is usually considered among the top group. And there's no reason that you can't develop a great NASCAR game using the Unity engine, especially with the current update that everyone's raving about, that everybody likes who's using this engine. Again, I'm not an expert, but from everything I've seen, there really isn't a logical reason to focus so much on a non-problem. Check out the video if you get a chance. It's informative. It's cool stuff. I like technology. I like anything like that stuff is really interesting to me. Moving on from that, I also want to thank Elite Killer 29. He also went on the same comment section, and he did post a couple of tweets from Ed Martin, recent tweets, which brings me to the subject of this video, which concerns the upcoming game. One, something that most of us already kind of knew through the grapevine, we've heard rumors, we've heard, and other people who've seen other tweets. There is going to be added dirt tracks to this game, and in one of the posts, one of the tweets, he said the number 3 usually comes after number 2, and it was in reference. I guess somebody asked some kind of question, or maybe they said, hey, something about NASCAR Heat 3. And I think that's just a kind of playful tease to say, don't expect this game to be NASCAR Heat 3 as far as what it's called or what they're going for. So I found that very interesting. So for me, if the game comes out and it's okay, NASCAR Heat 3, I'll be surprised. Why would he tweet that if that's the case? And, I kind of like that. So he said something about we're doing things different this time. So in other words, whatever you were expecting, it's probably not what you expect. So it's got me thinking, and I'm kind of excited for a few reasons. The other tweet, I guess someone asked about when is the game gonna be announced, and that's something about, I think he said something about we're doing things different. I think that's the one where he said that. He also posted a picture of a dirt track, and you could see some footprints in the stands, and it's like a lot of dirt. And you could see the imprints of the footprints. So we don't really have an official word, but you can assume that, yes, there's going to be added dirt tracks and stuff. And I would assume that means that there's probably going to be a dirt series. And Elite Killer also kind of threw in his comments something about Dirt to Daytona 2. And that really caught my eye, and I liked it. When I read that, I'm like, something, that really sounds interesting, and I think that would be awesome. If this is what it is, and this is just speculation, right? But since we don't have a lot of info, what else am I going to do right now other than speculate? But with the teasing and stuff, and it just really looks like he's trying to say we're doing things a little different this time, and we already know about the dirt tracks, and I'm assuming they're going to add some series. Now, the original Dirt to Daytona, a lot of you guys probably haven't played it or don't remember it. And to be quite honest with you, I don't remember every detail of the game. But there's reason for that. That game came out, it came out 16 years ago. That's a long, long time ago. 16 years, 2 console generations ago. It was on a PlayStation 2. Okay? But that game was awesome, okay? And usually when I've talked about games from the past that I really want to see kind of, future games kind of take that lead, take that formula and kind of go with it and improve on it. I've always brought up NASCAR the Thunder series, between 2003 and 2005. I think those 3 games are the pinnacle. Right? 2003, 2004, 2005. But the reason I haven't really talked a lot about Dirt to Daytona is because that came out in 2002, so it was even longer, a longer wait period going back. But also, the fact that as great as the game was, right, the follow-up to that, or the next game that came out behind that was NASCAR Thunder 2003, which was a great title from EA. And after playing Dirt to Daytona, I played the hell out of it, right? I remember, a lot of it's starting to come back to me. But the reason that I kind of did forget a lot about it is because NASCAR Thunder was so good that I just moved on. And then after 2003, NASCAR Thunder 2004 was even kind of better than 2003. And then 2005 was great too. So I never had a reason to kind of go back and play the older games. It's like as each game was coming out, I was enjoying it, and I found it, it might be slightly better. And in either case, if the follow-up to, let's say, Dirt to Daytona, or not the follow-up to that game, but just the next NASCAR game, was sort of, not that great, I would have just went back and played Dirt to Daytona. And I'd have more memories of it. I would remember a lot more about it. So that's I think that's the main reason why it kind of, it got forgotten a little bit. But a lot of people have brought that game up throughout the years as probably the greatest game. And I can see that. And going back, like I said, I don't remember every single detail of Dirt to Daytona, but I do remember specific things, and some of it's coming back to me even more. And one of the things that I do remember was the actual racing and how great it was. This game was a ton of fun. The racing was awesome. The AI was actually quite good, especially for the time. Remember, this was 16 years ago. And one last time, this is a point I forgot to make earlier when I was once again talking about Unity and the game engine. Dirt to Daytona and the Thunder series, this was PlayStation 2 era stuff. And whether you're talking about the EA Thunder series or Dirt to Daytona, which was made by Monster Games, those games were made on a PS2 console. The PlayStation 2 console, compared to the modern consoles now, is a pocket calculator in terms of hardware and technology. And the fact that these games were as great as they were, and they had so much content, and there was a lot more detail in these games. I want you to think for a second, what game engines were being used on those games? And remember, Dirt to Daytona is a 16-year-old game from the PS2 era. 16 years ago. And when you think of that, look at what they were able to accomplish on that old technology. And there's no way anyone's going to tell me that whatever game engines were being used back then, I'm not even sure they called them game engines. The point is, they were very simple compared to anything. You could find the worst game engine out today. The worst. And I guarantee you, it's 1,000 times better than whatever was being used on those games. Think about that for a second. And look at all the things that were accomplished and how great those games were compared to recent games. And then ask yourself, does it make sense that I'm blaming the Unity engine for anything? No, it doesn't make sense. And that's the kind of thing I'm trying to convey to people. And when you look at that, the reason those games were so great and played well and everything functioned, but they weren't perfect, but they were great games. And they had a lot more content, and they had a lot more going on in terms of complexity, which I'll talk a little bit more about when it comes to Dirt to Daytona, which that's what I'm focused on. And you were able to do all this on what? 16-year-old technology. So that's the last thing I'm going to say, I promise, about the Unity engine. Does not make sense that on modern consoles now, and on top of all that, as I said, the Unity engine is considered by most people in the industry as one of the top engines. I'm not telling you that it's the best. I'm not telling you that the Unreal Engine isn't better in certain aspects, right? But it's a tool. It's a canvas to build a game. That's all it is. And yes, there are things that different game engines do that kind of maybe one engine is slightly better at or gives you a better way to do it. Yes, there are certain things you can measure, but overall, that's my point. And those games were great because of the people working on them, the time they spent, and really, I'm telling you guys, it's just programming and coding. Now, if you look at those games today, yeah, they look dated. The graphics are horrible, right, compared to what we're used to. But that's not the point. It's all of the complexity about those games, all the programming, the things they do, the details that, quite frankly, we haven't seen in NASCAR games in this era. So, no more game engine talk. That's done. If you still want to ride that train, have at it. But, Dirt to Daytona, what I remember is, one, the racing was fantastic. The entire, I guess it was a year, from the time it came out until 2000, NASCAR Thunder 2003 came out, which was by EA. I don't think a day went by that I didn't play that game. It never got old. I never got tired of it. And what I do remember the modifieds. That was a ton of fun. I loved it. They were fun to drive, and each series felt different. It had its own feel. And the other thing I remember is that that game was a lot closer to being a quote-unquote simulator than any of the NASCAR games we've had since 2011, going all the way back to Eutechnics. That game was closer to being a simulator. And it had more options. It had so many options. And aside from the career mode, it had so many options. You can race any type of race you wanted, any level of difficulty. It was as challenging as you wanted it to be. You could dig deep into the mechanics of the car, the engineering of the car. This is what I mean by simulator. Every aspect of the car you could tweak, you could play with, right? It had more camera angles than any of these modern, recent NASCAR games. That game was a blast, and that's what I remember most. It was so much fun racing, and the AI was actually very fun to race. Not saying that game was perfect. It did have flaws. And even then, the sound could have been better. But we've never, till this day, had a great sounding NASCAR game. It's never happened. I don't understand that. That's something that I hope we can see an end to that. But even then, yeah, the game sounded kind of weak. But, you know, it had its weaknesses. But overall, it was such a great, fun racing experience. And that stuff, I do remember. And a lot of cool tracks I've never seen before. And it was a ton of fun. And here's what excites me, right? Of course, there's no official word that they're looking towards pushing this series towards being like Dirt to Daytona. This is speculation. But when you read these tweets, when you see where they're going with the dirt racing, and then he tells you, well, in a way he's saying, don't expect this to be NASCAR Heat quote-unquote 3. So, and we're doing things different this time. That means they're trying new things. And I love hearing this. And one of the biggest things that I've said, and I made a video about it, that the biggest reason that we haven't gotten a good NASCAR game, and that's when I talked about the game engine. I said we're blaming the wrong stuff. It's not that. It's the leadership. It's not really the guys actually even working on the game. You know, they do whatever they're told to do. I said it's the leadership, or lack thereof. The guys who decide, this is what I want in the game. I want you to be able to do this. I want this. I want that. uh, you know, this is how I want the game structured. And the vision, which is what I remember using that word vision, that the lack of vision, that these guys keep making these games and they don't realize what the hell's missing, and what should be in it, and what we should be able to do. So this is what I call, if I mean, I don't want to leap too far forward, but if this is what if they're looking at Dirt to Daytona as inspiration and a model for the direction they want to push this franchise, I'm telling you right now, I am ready to do backflips. I am really excited. But I don't want to get too excited, and really, we don't have enough information. However, the way that he's teasing with the tweets, and by the way, one more time before I forget, I do want to thank you guys, all of you guys that always let me in on information, especially anything from Facebook or Twitter. You guys know I don't have anything to do with that stuff. And unfortunately, I'm one of the last to find information. I usually get my information from other people like you guys or other YouTubers. So I wish I could be more of a newsbreaker for you guys, where you come here and you find out something right away. But that's not what I do. And so I rely on you guys for information, right? And then I talk about stuff after it's already out, and I give you my thoughts on it. But I do want to thank you guys, and you guys always keep me up to date on stuff. So thanks again. But those tweets, looking into it, I mean, that's kind of what I'm starting to see. And like Elite Killer wrote in his comment about Dirt to Daytona 2, hey, you know what? I would love this game to be sort of follow that formula. Of course I don't expect it to be like a carbon copy remaster of sorts, but if they look to that game for inspiration, you cannot go wrong. The way that the career mode is structured, I loved it. I loved the racing, the physics, the handling. Yes, it still needs work. There is no such thing as a perfect system with those things. They're always a work in progress in any game, right? And these are video games on consoles. You can't expect them to be iRacing level of, simulation. But that game, for what it did at that time, it was amazing. And it was deep and immersive. And if they're looking at Dirt to Daytona for inspiration, and if they're saying we need to go back in that direction, I love it. And that's the kind of leadership and decision making and vision that I want to see from 704 or any developer. You need to go see the games that were great and people loved, and figure out what made these games so great, and go there and bring that back. And of course, you have to freshen everything up and implement more stuff, right? I don't remember a paint booth back then. You did have car customization and stuff. And another thing I loved about that series, I don't know if they can do that anymore. There's so many issues with licensing. But I am a fan of the old made-up phony sponsors. I always enjoyed that. I thought it added a lot to the game in terms of variety. And a lot of these sponsorships were cool. Some of them were funny. And I think it added a lot to the game. And I don't particularly think it's a bad thing. I'm not a stickler for every detail being super realistic to life. When it comes to sponsorships, sometimes licensing gets in the way. It could create more headaches than anything. And I would not mind seeing a return of some phony sponsorships. It's not a big deal. It's not even a suggestion. But if something like that ever happened, I'd welcome it. I have fond memories of that stuff. And even the EA games had that. So that's something else I remember about that game. But every series was fun to drive. Every series felt like its own unique. It had its own personality. And I played the hell out of that game. And really, I'm kind of surprised. I really didn't bring that game up more often. Yeah, I still think that the Thunder series really is the pinnacle. But looking at that game, yeah, you know what? You can make a case for that game as being probably the best. As I said, if you're looking at things like graphics and more modern type of visuals, of course, you see that game now, it's like, whoa, I can't play something like that. But you got to remember that at the time, that it was great. And if you can do a modernized version with all the bells and whistles that we want, with the presentation and the paint booth and more customization, uh, you know, that would be great. But if this is the direction they're going, man, I'm telling you, I would be excited. And I did give these guys credit last year for going into the direction of adding the trucks and the Xfinity series and adding tracks, and I did give them credit for that. My thing was that at the end, the game still felt bare bones, and they didn't do enough in the other areas. Right? It was great they added that stuff, but like I said, if they're only adding tracks and series, and that's it, then even this game, it's not going to be that much better. It'll be slightly better, but you still got to do a lot of other things. And I'm hoping that we see a game that has a lot more content. The first game I do remember, I think I'm talking about Heat Evolution. That game was like 8 gigs total. So that's not enough. It's in today's, with today's technology and what most other games are doing. But these guys, this is why I'm always willing to give these guys a chance, because unlike, I never felt this way with your Technics. I just didn't. These guys do seem like they're a little more passionate, and they have more better intentions, I should say. They're really trying. I feel it. And when you look at last year's game compared to the first game, there was a lot of improvement. So this is why you show me that, and I'm always willing to support you. But like I said, it really depends. What does this mean? They haven't really mentioned Dirt to Daytona. I'm kind of taking that leap. And that would be something. And another thing before I let you guys go. Dirt to Daytona was made by Monster Games, which is pretty much intertwined with 704 today. And that's how they started the Heat Evolution and stuff. And if it makes sense that if you're going to go to the past for inspiration, I would rather that instead of the Heat, go away from that and go to Dirt to Daytona, because it really did do a lot of things extremely well, and that game was a blast. And there was just a lot of, that career mode was so deep and immersive. It had a lot of things that I do not even remember. I don't remember all the details. But I do remember that it just was really deep. And you had all the stats, career earnings, anything you wanted was in that game that you could almost think about, almost anything. And that was 16 years ago. So I hope that this is where they're kind of headed. I'll be fucking happy, man. And this is the kind of thing that I want to see. And when I talk about that there hasn't been that vision, or they've just been making the wrong decisions, right? And if they Tell their actual developers, the guys, who are crunching all the numbers and actually rendering the game, tell them what to do. They can do it. They can get the job done. So, what do you guys think? How many of you guys actually know about Dirt to Daytona? Did you actually play it? I know a lot of you guys are younger than me, and this is just a long time ago. But if you never played it, you really don't know what you missed. And I'm interested to know what you guys think. And I know this is all speculation, but I hope we hear something more soon. I really do. Hopefully this weekend, but I'm not really that sure anymore. We thought we were going to hear something during the All-Star weekend. It didn't happen. And then even in the tweet, somebody asked Ed, when is the announcement? And his answer to that was, well, stay tuned. We're doing things a little differently, something like that. I don't remember the exact words, but what does that mean? That probably means don't expect an announcement here in Charlotte. Maybe they'll wait till Eldora or something, or who knows. But I hope it's soon. I don't want to wait too long. I want some details, man. And then because speculation is fun, but at the same time you can get carried away, and you could end up heading down the wrong path, and then when you find out, well, it's nothing like that. It could feel disappointing, even if it's not really disappointing. It just feels that way because you were like, well, that's all I'm gonna say. So that's all I got for you guys today. I thought it was interesting to talk about because of these tweets, and I really don't think they would tweet some of this stuff just to mess with people. I do think that they're kind of throwing hints, and I think they're having fun with people. And that's something I like because it shows me that they're kind of excited. They're not hiding. They're kind of excited. They're throwing out a little, carrot, dangling carrots out there and like playing games with us and telling us, 3 comes after 2, but in the way of saying like that you're expecting NASCAR Heat 3, but it's probably not going to be that. So it's little things to get you, it's a little game, and I kind of like that, and especially if I feel like it's coming from a place of excitement. I think they're excited, and last year they were excited with the direction they were going, and it turned out, yeah, they did make some big improvements. So I like to see that. I want to see more excitement from the developer, not just like whatever, or don't overhype things. I really don't like that. Don't sell us something, or don't do false advertising or things like that. I don't think they've ever done that, but I've seen other developers do stuff like that, like Ubisoft or whatever, and they'll show you stuff, and they'll lead you to believe that a certain game is something and that it isn't, and then you find out when the game comes out that it's a big disappointment. So that I don't like, but I like that they're kind of dangling carrots for people, and I don't know. Everything seems to point in a certain direction. So maybe we'll get. That's another thing. What do you guys think? Dirt series. What dirt? I don't know any actual dirt series, real life dirt series. If somebody out there might know a name or something affiliated, I don't think there's anything affiliated with NASCAR that's a dirt series. But I do know that there's modifieds that are affiliated and stuff like that, and or who knows, maybe I don't know. What do you guys think? So I look forward to your comments. What do you think about my speculation? Would you be excited if this thing was really, if they were kind of looking at Dirt to Daytona as a formula to kind of take inspiration from and maybe push the series in that direction? I look forward to your comments, and when hopefully there's real news soon, and I could talk about that. So thanks again. Thanks for keeping me updated. I really do appreciate that stuff. And that's it. I look forward to your comments.